This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in their industry. And that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds in the biz to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts.
Where I really see the future, and specifically for SMS, is the crossing of SMS into RCS. If you think about it, in the early days of text, when you had AOL, CompuServe, Mail.com, it was a text-based messaging system. And then somewhere around the early 2000s, HTML email came along. And now that is the dominant way of which email is used. RCS is the same thing. It is a rich media-based application. It's a thinner with regards to the bandwidth it consumes, but still allows you full interactive ability, specifically for marketers. This is John Wright. I am the CEO and co-founder of True Dialogue.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
The company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve
Most
more.
proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time.
The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it.
It's not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labpart, and today how John Wright has built the ultimate messaging solution and made it easy to use, flexible, and enterprise grade. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does, settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup, just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai. John Wright grew up in Arkansas when his family moved from Wisconsin for his dad's job. He was influenced heavily by his father, who became an entrepreneur with several successful exits. As a kid, he got to see the ups and downs and how you ride the roller coaster of being a business owner. Outside of tech, he's an active sailor and certified instructor in yacht racing. Growing up with a family of woodworkers, he also likes to build things and make stuff with his hands. Finally, he lives in sobriety and recovery from past addiction and is active in this community of people. In the past, John and his team built a platform around email, which they sold in 2001 to a company that is now a part of Google. Post that, he started to notice the proliferation of SMS in the messaging world, in similar patterns as to what email did. And they decided to build a platform to serve the enterprise in this capacity. This is the creation story of True Dialogue.
True Dialogue is an enterprise communications platform. We initially started with the thesis of the business being that SMS was going to start creeping up with regards to business use and start carving in, much like what email did with direct mail, that text would start coming in and being a formative communication channel for businesses. We help at this juncture, we primarily are working with large organizations, enterprises, and have since added to just the basis of SMS, which we started out just doing bulk one-way communications and have since expanded our offerings to include two-way SMS, email, RCS, and voice. We work with a variety of industries. Those include healthcare, higher education, staffing, retail, and professional sports franchises. Like we were just talking about the Packers, we've got a number of the leading NHL, NFL, NBA, MLS, and MLB teams that we work with, and our application allows them to work in a variety of channels and communicate both on a one-way and two-way basis with hundreds of thousands and millions of people at any particular time, and also manage the two-way communication stream. Been doing it for about 10 years and building and grinding since we started the company, my partner and I, and it's been a fun ride.
Let's dive into what you would consider the MVP for True Dialogue. So that first version you built, how long did it take to build, and what sort of tools or methodology you're using to bring it to life?
I started out my career as a DBA, and I worked for a company which is now part of EG, Interpublic Group. It's called Axiom Corporation, and it's a large data and data services company based out of Arkansas. The primary function which they were building databases for was for direct mail. That evolved in the late 90s. I was very fortunate to see that as email was popping in, that email was going to become a formative channel, much like SMS has become one in the last 10 years for businesses, and said direct mail is awfully expensive. You got to pay postage, paper, processing time, all of those things. It's very slow. It's hard to read. And as email came into the forefront in the late 90s, that businesses would start using it as a communication channel for them to communicate with their clients. And I got involved with that. I got involved with some guys out of Canada called Flow Network. We built that company and in the email world and sold it in late 2000 and closed in 2001 to a company called DoubleClick, which is now part of Google. And I've been involved in several email businesses since that point in time. When we build an MVP, the foundation was very similar with regards to how you build things. And inside of this company, it was just very scrappy. We took what the flow and process was foundationally for building an SMS platform and based it a lot off of what operationally how things worked inside of email. And obviously there's a lot of regulatory items that exist inside of the world of telephony that did not exist inside of email. And we built the platform from the ground up using a variety of tools. We were a very early adapter in the world of Microsoft Azure using cloud computing. And that was the basis of everything. We initially used Microsoft tools, specifically Shared SQL was the first database backend that we used, and Vue.js was the front end component of it. And we also used some logging tools, specifically Elasticsearch. Everything was built in C# if you're talking about technically. That has evolved pretty significantly since then. My experience is that early on, as Shared SQL was an offering of Azure, it did not scale. And we had to, in the early scaling days of True Dialogue, we had to quickly move off of that platform. And we moved on to MySQL, which is now owned by Oracle. Foundationally, that's how we did things. And the MVP, we're still in MVP mode. I think it's just a consistent process of being scrappy and continually evolving our MVP, and we're offering our latest MVP was with a new form of messaging in the inbox called RCS messaging. You might see that inside of your device, whether you're using Android or iPhone. It now says RCS message at the bottom of your screen. RCS was built by Google to compete with iMessage on the iPhone. And much like VHS and VC, or Betamax rather, VHS and Beta, those two technologies competed with each other. And roughly 2 years ago, Apple made the decision to allow RCS on the iPhone. And that looks like it's going to be the dominant platform for more multimedia messaging inside of the text inbox.
Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains. And this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since, especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This message is sponsored by Pilot. The thing that gets founders is this. You can look profitable on paper and still run out of cash. They need a platform to give them a real-time view into their books. And that's where Pilot comes in. Pilot is an accounting platform built specifically for venture-backed startups. They handle your books, tax prep, and CFO-level guidance, so you have investor-ready financials from day one. They've worked with companies like OpenAI, Lattice, and Airtable, and they get how startups are structured in a way that a generic accountant just doesn't. Pilot gives you a complete real-time view into your cash position, like burn rate, cash flow modeling, and runway, so you're never caught off guard. And when investors or board members ask questions, the answer is just there. If you're buried in bookkeeping, who's leading the company? Pilot handles the books so you can get back to building. Check out the link in the show notes to claim your discount. I'm curious about how you progressed and matured True Dialogue, and you touched on some of that, and I kind of want to dig into it a bit more and wrap it in a box, because what I'm really looking for is how do you build your roadmap? How do you go about deciding that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address?
Our feature set and application set has matured significantly. What we have today versus when we first launched is almost unrecognizable. On the roadmap, I'm a big believer in listening, and we have very good collection tools, and those tools are primarily geared around our services and success teams and sales teams, and listening to our customers and our prospective new customers with regards to what they're looking for. And they'll tell you if you listen hard enough. I think that our roadmap today, we have some certain items that come from a regulatory side that the agencies require us to build in, specifically around compliance, that we have to make adjustments in our roadmap and add to in order to fulfill regulatory requirements. But from a feature set, it is 99.9% driven by our customer. And we got very narrow early on. I think one of the phrases that we use internally is that when everything's important, nothing's important. And that goes inside of sales. I think one of the challenges that I was faced early on as a CEO was that the use cases of text are so massive. You can use it for appointment setting. You can use it for two-factor authentication. You can use it for marketing. You can use it for customer service. It just is so massive that if you try to focus and take care of all customers, you just run around in circles. So we got very narrow early on and decided our first vertical that we were going to attack was education. And we got extremely fortunate in that one of the customers that we started working with was a leading for-profit university. And we sat down with them, we listened to them, and in the early days, 90% of our features and roadmap was contributory by the university that we had partnered with. And they're still a client today and still have an enormous impact on what we deliver today. When you say, what does our roadmap look like today and how do we build it? It's 100% from listening to our clients, where their problems are, how the use of our application set can be used to bridge the gap. And if you listen hard enough and ask the right questions, they'll tell you exactly what's needed.
So I hear you saying we. Tell me about how you built your team. And what do you look for in those people to indicate that they are the winning horses to join you?
It's certainly been slow, I think, all things considered. I think that what we found is that we'd rather have a small team of people who are all in than a large number of passengers. That's how we phrase it internally. People that are just grabbing on and trying to catch the ride. What I really look for is work ethic, intellectual honesty and integrity, and someone who can handle ambiguity without falling apart. Skills can be taught, attitude can't. People who've lasted are people who treat it like it's their own company, and we take that position and make our employees shareholders inside of our company, and we want them having that owner mindset.
This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's mezmo.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai. Let's move into scale. And this will be interesting. It's always interesting to see how this is approached, especially building for the enterprise. I'm curious how scale was thought about in the early days. And that can be technology, it can be business. And I'm also interested in, have there been, areas where you've had to fight scale as you've grown?
The phases which you're building out ahead of growth, and phases where growth is outrunning you and you're duct taping things together, and I use that phrase loosely. I don't think any founder who tells you that it's all clean and planned is being straight up. The goal is to make sure that the duct tape phases are short and you learn from them. And then I think that there's constant improvement with regards to taking the lessons that you've learned along the way of scale. And there are certain parts of scale that you can plan for and work great on a whiteboard and look very elegant. And then there's reality. We're in a world of operators where we call them MNOs, mobile network operators, and we work with them. I have to work with them quite a bit. And learning how to work and scale with the restrictive nature that they impose on their end provides an additional level of challenge, but I think that we have learned from it over time, and we've built an application set that scales horizontally and vertically in order to meet our customers' needs. We also look at advances in technology and how we can bridge gaps. Most notably, I think that in the world of which we live in today, if I think back in my early days in technology, and you might remember those days, it was easy to turn things on and turn things off on business hours. We're in a world of 24/7 international, on all the time, and where customers are, we're having a maintenance window between 2 and 3 o'clock this morning, and you've got 10 customers that say, you can't do that. That's during this particular time, and you can't turn things down and update the systems at that period of time. So we've been able to basically build and scale an infrastructure that we can update in real time with little to no latency in our systems, and scale without having to take the system down, and scale on a on-demand basis. And frankly, that is one of the reasons why we initially went in cloud, is because of the on-demand nature that cloud provides. There's a higher cost structure than a colo or a managed facility, but the availability and replication and redundancy provided inside of cloud allows us to manage our application set and offering with little to no disruption to our end clients. And same thing inside of scale. During high load periods, everything scales, and our pods in Kubernetes are able to basically add on. And in a predictive nature now with AI, it can look over time and say, during this period of time, 20 minutes before that, peak times during the day, whether it's users or messaging, it knows, and it's able to scale in real time and meet our customer demand and keep our customers happy.
As you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, specifically at True Dialogue, what are you most proud of?
There are a couple of things I think are probably closest to my heart. And I would say, first of all, I look back and gosh, you look back and it's the longevity, just 10 years of doing this and everything that I've been able to learn. But the thing I'm probably most proud of is my employees and the people and the talent and the team. And secondly, we've been very fortunate in that we have a number of customers who've been with us for the entire tenure of our business. They came and they stayed. It drives me cuckoo when people call and say, I want to talk about a partnership, and they're glorified salespeople and they're just saying, okay, how does the two-way partnership work? And they're trying to sell you something. I've instilled inside of my team is that if you listen to your customers and try to figure out how to make it a partnership where you're listening to their feedback and you're helping them solve problems, and they're helping you solve problems as well and grow your product, and that other customers are going to need that and need those features and offerings, you build longevity. And I'm just super proud of a lot of the people who've been here the entire tenure of the company. We've got employees that have been here the entire 10 years. It's just amazing. And we've got customers who've been here the entire 10 years. So I think the two pinnacles when I look out of the balcony are customers and people.
Okay, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
Probably one of the hardest lessons, and I'm still growing as a CEO today, is, I think that it's holding on to talent too long. One of the hardest lessons is holding on to the wrong people, either whether it's out of loyalty or optimism, that things can turn around. But ultimately, when you look back on it, what I've really learned is that by holding on to poor talent, it disrupts your culture, because you've got people who are working hard, the pilots and the passengers. You got the pilots who are in there flying with you, and then you got the passengers and they're just dragging you down. And that's a hard thing to overcome and learn. I think the phrase is hire slow and fire fast. And I'm still have a hard time doing that sometime and holding on to people too long. But I think it's better as a leader to avoid mistakes and have those conversations earlier. And I think that another thing that we say internally, we've got a lot of little sayings, like in AA, you've got a lot of things inside of recovery, little phrases and things. But the other thing that we say is that unresolved conflict is expensive conflict. And having those conversations earlier, the biggest mistakes that I've made is not having those conversations soon.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. Let's move forward then. I'm really curious what the future looks like for True Dialogue, for where you see the industry going, for what you've built, for your team, all the things.
With regards to SMS and email and voice, SMS is going to continue to grow. Email and voice is actually in a decline. I think more people are using email. There's still growth inside of email. However, I think that the laws that basically have been erected to protect the email system were, it's called can spam. And those laws were erected post email already being a dominant communication tool, whereas the rules that regulate SMS and the text inbox have been in place for quite a long time, will protect that environment. Where I really see the future, and specifically for SMS, is the crossing of SMS into RCS. And if you think about it, in the early days of text, when you had AOL and CompuServe and mail.com, it was a text-based messaging system. And then somewhere around the early 2000s, HTML email came along. And now that is the dominant way of which email is used. RCS is the same thing. It is a rich media-based application. It's a thinner with regards to the bandwidth it consumes, but still allows you full interactive ability, specifically for marketers. And if you get your Verizon bill or your T-Mobile bill or your FedEx shipping notification, those are all now mostly have moved over to RCS. And that gives you an idea of what's capable inside of RCS. Drop-down boxes and variable content, the ability to send images, which you can send images over text. They were called MMS, but you couldn't click on an image and take you to a website. With RCS, it gives you all of that. That is a big change that's happening. I think at the same time, we're at a moment in time where agentive AI is really coming in, and agents being able to communicate with each other is very easy because they can just make a connection over the internet, talk to each other, make a handshake. However, there's also an enormous need, specifically for organizations that are adding agentive into their customer service, into their sales and marketing, for them to be able to communicate with human. And the need for tools like ours for those agentive agents to be able to provision, scale up, and add those tool sets so they can effectively communicate outside of just their agent-to-agent communications.
John, let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to, and why. And I know in our early conversation you mentioned your father. I'm curious what your answer is now.
Still, I think foundationally, he was the man who made me the man I am today. And he obviously was the early and probably the largest influence. But in my career, I've just been so fortunate. I tell my wife constantly, I'm very lucky. And I think that luck finds the prepared. But early on, when I was in college, I worked at a restaurant, and Chili's, still very popular today, but I had a manager named Howard Kahn, who was a general manager, and we were the number 2 or number 3 Chili's in all of North America. And for a general manager that rolled up his sleeves and could do every position inside of that restaurant and did every position, he led by example. And I think that in college, I saw how he attacked things, and he was a major influence and mentor early on. And then that led me into my first job out of college, and I got very lucky. I had Axiom, and I had one of the gentlemen who was head of one of the divisions, a gentleman by the name of Steve Brighton. And he was an early mentor of mine. And I think that the things that I learned from him with regards to don't be afraid to take chances, and it's his tenacity and effort and the culture. He was a culture builder, and I just really learned a lot about how to build culture from him. And today, I'd say that my business partner is a successful investor. People call their investors, oh, my investor or my chairman. I'm lucky in that I've got a business partner who's also the chairman and investor inside of our business. And I think that learning from his experience and his successes and the things that he's taught me, an enormous impact. And it shows up at every point along the way. The integrity, we had some challenges early on, and finding a business partner who shoots straight down the middle every time, no questions asked. There was a lot of litigation in our industry early on, and we got sued. I think in the first 6 months, one of our customers got sued, and it was frivolous litigation in the early days of texting. There's the law that governs. This is called the TCPA, or Telephone Consumer Privacy Act. And there was a lot of gray area, and it's since been cleaned up through the Facebook Act of 2021. And all of that's gone away, but we got nailed. It was quite expensive. He looked at me and I looked at him, and do we pack up our bags and call it quits? Do we put our head down and march forward? And he said, are we right? And I said, yes. And he goes, let's fight it. And if you feed the pigeons, they keep coming back. And I got your back. And he showed me just what a true partner is, and held his head high and doing the right thing. Good things happen, and highly influential. And I just feel blessed every day that I've had the people in my life that I have, and finding him as a business partner and as an influence in how I conduct my life, both personally and professionally. I can't tell you, and other entrepreneurs who are founding businesses, how important it is to surround yourself with people like that in life.
Last question. So you're getting on a plane. You're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world, and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
Probably the biggest lesson, and I'd have to explain it for a second, but equity is the most expensive form of capital. If you're going out and you're building a company and you're excited about what you do, there's a lot of people that are willing to write checks. Know your worth, and don't sacrifice hyper growth in the form of giving money away unnecessarily. Being a scrappy entrepreneur and bootstrapping things is a perfectly acceptable way to grow a business, and owning it. I think I've seen a lot of people along the way who take VC money, and the first bump in the road, when things start going sideways, the VC pull up. They've got 100 investments. They just need 1 or 2 to hit to get their money back, but they bail. And they decide, all of a sudden, as a founder, you're seeing your business get thrown to the side, and because they don't have the same conviction you do, and taking those early checks, you've given away ownership. So just that is probably one of the hardest and most important things to do, is to have conviction and don't sacrifice your control for the sake of trying to raise money rapidly. For every Facebook or SpaceX or Tesla or whatever company it is that's gone out and been successful, there's 1,000 others that took money, and the VC got shy, stopped putting money in, and all of a sudden you're upside down and you're burning at a rate that's unsustainable. Having controlled, measured growth is a perfectly acceptable. Building a good business, that to me is probably the best lesson you can learn.
That's fantastic advice. Well, John, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of True Dialogue.
Thank you again for having me.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love, it helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.